Hi, good morning. We are here with Keith Sonderling. He is the U.S. Department of Labor Deputy Secretary, and he's going to talk to us about how employers and HR leaders can prepare their workforces for the year ahead.
Good
Hello.
to be here.
Nice to have you here.
I'm excited to be back at HR Tech, one of my favorite conferences. What I tell everyone, this is the Super Bowl of HR conferences, and it's so great to see you and so many friends here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here, especially this year with AI being a big topic, and I know it's a big topic in your job and with the administration. So maybe we could just start with one of the biggest concerns that a lot of folks have is what the administration could be doing to help alleviate people's fears about how AI may impact their jobs.
Well, there's just been so many iterations about how AI is not going to only impact the workforce, but impact human resource leaders. And as you know, we've talked for years about how AI technologies are going to impact recruiting, hiring, all stages of the employment life cycle, from creating a job offer all the way through ending employment. So we've been discussing that for years, a lot of the ethics, a lot of the compliance and the laws, and the audience here has been, and HR leaders have been so receptive to me and all the efforts that I was doing for this job at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and really making sure that the laws that the government enforces, whether it's the EEOC, Department of Labor, National Labor Relations Board, OSHA, across the board, that the developers, the users, everyone in that life cycle of HR tech is aware of these legal requirements and compliance requirements, because without that baseline, these products are not going to hit that critical mass that everyone here wants. So that's been the journey up until now. I think this year it's starting to change, and what we're starting to see is less focus on what these products can potentially do wrong versus how do we now compete on the global stage, not only for talent that everyone here wants to recruit and bring in-house, but how we could start using AI to really help not only skill our workforce, but skill the next generation of workers. And that's what we're really focused on in the Trump administration and at the Department of Labor, is how do we get these baseline skills to workers, to students, to everyone involved, so they can actually use these programs. We can see these programs can continue to be developed and purchased by corporations to really make workers more productive and businesses thrive in this new economy.
It really helps balance clarity with kind of a future forward look, which I think is what a lot of the talk is here. Now we've got more tools to use. How can we make them work for the future? So that's really useful.
Exactly, and it's dispelling a lot of the rumors too about what these tools are actually going to be doing. We've talked for so many years about the hesitancy for employees to want to use these tools because they don't necessarily trust that their employer is going to be using these the right way. And that's something I talk about a lot at conferences like this. It's building that trust into these systems when they're designed, when they're purchased, and when they're deployed, because ultimately you need employee buy-in to be able to use these tools, to make work more productive, to outsource some of the tasks that workers, administrative tasks that they don't want to be working on, so they can really get to that skilled work that they came to their job to do. So a lot of that is how do we build trust into these programs, and that's really from HR, the top, saying here's why we are buying these programs, here's how we're going to use these programs, and here's the exact purpose, so you don't need that fear. But also that fear will always be there unless we have that baseline skill of AI literacy for employees. And we're really lacking that. And that's something that the Department of Labor, we're really focusing on through a whole host of initiatives that we'll talk about.
Yeah, that's really exciting. That skill piece is something I know that is heavy on the minds of HR leaders, and with the vendors that are here to present their products, they understand they want people to know how to use them. They want them to be as easy as the other tools that people are using in their personal life. So it's a great point to kind of like drive in on those skills.
Right, because if you understand how these tools are designed, what they're being purchased for, and how you're going to use them, opposed to saying, oh, this is a tool an employer is buying just to displace me and have be my robot replacement. When you have those skills, you're saying, I know exactly what this program is going to do. I know exactly why they're buying it. I know exactly how to use it. And we don't have that now. And we believe that once we can get that education out there across the board and starting early, which we'll also discuss, that there'll be less fear and there'll be more buy-in from the employees who are in our world are the ultimate consumers of these products. And you talk about AI across the board in other industries, who are the users are consumers, right? But here in the HR space, I think what's unique is a lot of times that the users are going to be your own employees. So we really always have to keep that in mind.
Can you talk a little bit about how employers could prepare their workforce for this time, like what we're kind of calling an AI revolution, or what is sure to come next?
Yeah, well, this administration is at the forefront of that. And how we get there is a lot by President Trump's leadership and some of the executive orders that he signed, with his first 100 days in office. And on the AI literacy side, there's multiple executive orders that we're working on that really get to this. And I want to take a step outside of the HR space and the workforce space to talk about an executive order on AI literacy that requires the Department of Labor, the Department of Education, and the National Science Foundation to come together to start working on that baseline AI curriculum. If you look at other countries like China, they're starting AI training as early as 2nd grade now. So by the time those students are in middle school, high school, they could be already AI completely proficient and able to enter that workforce when they're 18. And we don't have that models here. So we're really trying to reinvent how education systems are looking at training and their own students here in the US to get that baseline AI literacy, so they're going to be prepared for those jobs as well. And we're not doing that, and that's what this executive order does, and that's what we're really excited about. It also has us take a look at workforce development, which, as you know, the Department of Labor plays a huge role because we fund it around the United States to various states. And for people who have lost their jobs, people who want to get back in the workforce, how do we get that AI literacy out there to adult education? So that's really a very big, exciting initiative for us. And how do we use a lot of these workforce dollars that have gone to just traditional employment training programs for skills that are no longer needed by employers to say, if you lost your job, if you want to get back in the workforce, if you want unemployment, here's a course you need to take to get those baseline skills. And we're seeing amazing partnerships, buy-in on this AI literacy piece from some of the biggest tech companies in the world who have signed pledge. And the First Lady of the United States is leading this effort on AI literacy. Signed pledges saying they want to be involved in this. They want to help educate the next generation of American workers on AI. And they're signing pledges, they're coming to the White House, they're giving a lot of resources that they have. Because if you look at training, there's no better workforce development training when you go to a company and your company teaches you exactly the way they want it. And look how big the learning and development space is here and has been for a long time. So large corporations have had that. So how do we democratize that to get that out to the states, to get that out to the American worker who wants to enter into this new tech work space using AI across the board? So we're working very closely with companies to get that training out to our state workforce agencies to be able to get that training for free to be able to enter the job market.
That's exciting for the kind of early career folks who, a lot of concern about how they can enter the workforce in this kind of new environment, as well as people that want to reskill from some other part of their career, maybe taking a shift. So that's an exciting point for a lot of the job pool, as well as the employers who are looking for more people to come and join their organization.
Yeah, and we're looking at it as an education piece too, and really starting early. And there's other executive orders related to the future of the Department of Education. As you know, a lot of that will go back to the states, but a lot of that historical workplace training that Department of Education did for some of the continuing learning or adult education, it's actually being moved over to the Department of Labor. So that gives us a much more holistic approach to be able to break down some of the long existing silos that existed between the education industry and the workforce industry. And they're two separate, but they really should be the same. Because if you look, why do people go to school? To eventually get a job. So those skills that they're learning there, again, need to match to be able to get jobs that employers actually have. So bringing a lot of those grants and that state funding to the Department of Labor allows us, who's always speaking to employers, to say, what are the jobs you're looking for? Whether it's in AI or any part of the economy, and saying, well, these are the jobs you're going, this is what you're forecasting, these are the skills that you need. Well, let's start training that in high school. Let's start training those skills in middle school. Let's talk to our community colleges and local colleges to make sure that they're offering courses that are in curriculum relevant to jobs in that area. Because as we see as a whole with the president's efforts in bringing jobs back to America, bring manufacturing back to America, he can deliver on that, and we can do that and get the jobs here and get the manufacturing here. But if there's not a skilled local workforce, we're going to be in a situation where all that was for nothing, and we can't. We have to have a local American workforce ready to take these jobs, and it really now, this holistic approach of working on the education side from the labor side is being able to communicate with employers and the education systems to get those skills very early on.
So considering kind of the role of the HR leader, and certainly here we have people from so many different industries, how is the DOL kind of providing some guidance how they can prepare the workforce they have? And this is really great, like also the workforce they want to have. Is there any guidance on preparing their workforce for what can come next?
Yeah, we have some really big initiatives that we're working on. The president issued his AI action plan, and a big part of that is the labor market and the workforce. So the Department of Labor is going to be creating an AI workplace hub. We're going to have all this relevant information, and that's a big reason why we're here at HR Tech, and my whole team is here to listen to HR professionals who actually need that guidance from us, having those conversations, which with this conference is really built around, to see what guidance they need, not just from a compliance side, and that's what I've been talking about for years. Here's how you comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Here's how you comply with civil rights laws when it comes to AI. And although those are still relevant and very popular, but I've had many keynotes on that, and now we're shifting the conversations about, here's how you build a workforce in this new AI economy, and here's how the Department of Labor is going to help you. So our hub is really going to be a one-stop shop for everything from not only that compliance piece that's out there, but really from the skills piece, and also working on data to show what the actual impacts of AI are going to be on the economy. Using the Bureau of Labor Statistics to actually get real statistics out there on where AI is going to impact jobs at a very granular level, so we can then provide guidance on how employees can cope with that and employers can deal with that. In addition to working with the states to get rapid AI training, both for those who want it, and if there are inevitable job losses from AI, to be able to take those workers and skill them to where those AI jobs are going. So we're really excited about the launch of this hub. It's going to have everything you can imagine for HR leaders to navigate, not just the software side of it, but also the workforce side. Because don't forget, a lot of the people here at this conference, they're here for the technology, but ultimately they're here to get the best skilled workforce and to skill and upskill their workforce. And that's the component we want to be able to have them plug in to our vast amount of research and knowledge on this.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I've heard you say many times, HR leaders know how to comply with the laws. These are the things they are trained to understand,
Right.
That takes us to that next level. Like, that's taken care of, but how can you improve your business, meet your business outcomes, and use AI to kind of go to that next level is kind of what you're saying, yeah.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of different ways we're going to get there. And look, again, everyone who's buying these software, using these software, what do they want? They want a skilled and talented workforce. And more importantly, as we're seeing more investment come back in the United States, as we're seeing manufacturing plants being built in certain rural areas, they want to hire a local workforce. They don't want to have to outsource, these jobs. They don't want to need to rely on foreign labor. They don't, or import workers from other states. You look at how tech companies want to expand into more rural areas. If they don't have that workforce, those workers are still going to come from California and New York or overseas. So how do we work together with those companies and say, you want to go here? The workforce doesn't exist there. What can we do to build that workforce? Whether it's through the grants I was talking about, the state workforce agencies provide that AI training, or how do we tap into the local workforce? And that's really what we're excited about, and one of the other presidential executive orders that directly impacts everything we're doing here, and really the core underlying practice of what HR practitioners here, especially in talent acquisition, are looking for, this executive order on high-skilled apprenticeships. And in this administration, we believe that there's a very talented workforce out there that may not want to go to traditional four-year academic institutions, and employers need to start shifting from those college fairs to high schools and begin doing that through registered apprenticeship programs. And registered apprenticeship programs are a long-tested model that allows people right out of high school or from other careers to start earning while they learn, and employers to be able to teach them, working with the Department of Labor, a skill, a trade, and then be able to do that job, for a very long career with that employer, or have that transferable skill, but really being taught on the job. And so many of these jobs historically have been in the trades, building, HVAC, plumbing, piping, and we need those jobs. As more manufacturing and more plants are built, as AI infrastructure is built, we're going to need those workers, to build these very complicated facilities. But then to staff those facilities as well, especially in the AI economy, look, so many students have taught themselves how to code online. There's so many resources on there. And you go to a high school student who's eager, who wants to be an entrepreneur, who wants to be in tech or really any industry, and say, well, you have to wait now 4 years and then get a master's degree, get a PhD. So you're not actually going to be able to apply those skills for 6, 7 years down the road, versus you could work at this large tech company today, right out of high school, and get paid and work at this brand name. What are you going to choose? All that debt or being able to get paid, while you're working at a brand name company? But all this is to get there, we need the employer buy-in.
Yeah.
We need companies to engage with us to actually enter into registered apprenticeships. So we're trying to reduce some of the regulatory red tape around apprenticeships and to be able to expand them to different industries. Because right now you really see them predominantly, like I said before, in building trades and manufacturing, but we want them in tech, we want them in business, really every single industry across the board. And that's how we believe we can deal with some of the talent shortage, and we can put the American worker first by giving them those opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't be able to take on without massive debt, without going down that one path that we see a lot of students just don't want to do.
Yeah, it's certainly something new for many people to think about and consider, which is what this event is about, kind of giving new ideas for the future.
Exactly, and that's really opening that aperture for them, and that's really what the Department of Labor does, is to show the multiple options, and for especially with companies in tech. When you think about apprenticeship, you just don't even think that is in that industry, and that's just not true. So we're breaking down those barriers, saying it's across the board. The President set a bold goal for the Department of Labor to hit 1 million new apprenticeships, so this is something that we're really committed to doing.
That's exciting. So I maybe should ask this question after you've seen the expo floor, but what's most exciting to you about the HR tech market right now?
Well, I want to just see how the progress that's been made from many of the things that I don't want to say lectured about, but I've discussed here for many years. And that's on the transparency of these tools. And to really, for these tools to work, I've always said, employees, businesses need to know how these very important decisions are being made. Because as I've always said, unlike other uses of AI across the board, across these companies, like using AI to make widgets faster, to do shipping routes faster, when you're dealing with HR tech, you're dealing with people's livelihoods. You're dealing with people's ability to enter and thrive into the workforce, to be able to pay their mortgage, and to really thrive in this American economy. So we need to make sure that all these tools, that there's that trust where I started, both from a legal compliance perspective, which I've drilled home to everyone and made it very clear what the rules of the road are, and really demystified that those are no different than the HR practices you're using if you're sitting down for an interview with somebody else versus using technology, to really then have the employees understand that all these technologies, I want to be subject to these technologies. I want to use these technologies as an employee because I know they're safe. I know they're trustworthy. I know they're compliant with the law, and I know they're just trying to make me better as an employee, so the businesses and the economy can thrive. So I'm really, as always, curious to see how those have been implementing, how they've been building that trust in there, so we really can hit critical mass on this technology, which I've talked about at length. HR tech and AI is the future of human resources. It's the future of work. And there's so many smart minds here and entrepreneurs that really want to solve a lot of the long-standing issues in human resources, in talent acquisition. They're all here. Everyone's gathered. Everyone's sharing ideas. And the Department of Labor really wants to be a part of that and really promote the American ingenuity that we're going to see here.
Yeah, there are 400 exhibitors downstairs, and 90 of them are startups, which I think is really exciting because these are brand new. Some of them are debuting right now, so it's going to have a good chance to see where their head's at moving forward and kind of explore
there's so many innovative things too.
So much innovation.
Where you talk about some of the products they're developing, and what's so fascinating to me is a lot of people develop these products again because of experiences they had in the workplace,
for sure,
good or bad. And a lot of those goes, well, I didn't have a fair interview. Or, I had an amazing interview and here's how we're going to duplicate it, or here's how we're going to fix that. So that's what's really exciting to us, because again, the more trust we have, the more transparency we have, the more compliance we're going to have across the board, which then allows us to continue to work on workforce development, work on helping American workers versus on the law enforcement side, which is not a place we want to be. We want everyone to have the tools they need to succeed and really thrive.
So you mentioned there's going to be a new hub coming out. Are there other ways that people can stay in touch with what the Department of Labor is rolling out in terms of not only guidance, but what's new, what's exciting? How can they keep up with that?
Absolutely. There's various efforts, from the White House with artificial intelligence across the board, whether it's on the cybersecurity side, whether it's on the workforce side, whether it's on just the global competitiveness side. And then at the Department of Labor, which is really most relevant to HR professionals, we want that interaction. We want people to sign up. We want to share research, with a lot of, whether it's the nonprofits here, the companies that really have these big arms that are doing employment-based research, and we want to share that information together too. And we also want to share a lot of the tremendous data we have to plug into their systems as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of various public events. The team is here at HR Tech going to meet anyone, but please, yes, we want everyone to be working and part of this, because we want to get it right and we want to make a lasting impact for this technology that's staying.